Ryder Cole's hand froze halfway to the cereal box. His eyes locked onto something that made his blood turn to ice. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, stood 3 feet away in a yellow sundress. Beside her, a man with a faded cobra tattoo snaking up his neck gripped her wrist like a shackle. But it wasn't the man that stopped Ryder's heart. It was her hand, palm open, fingers spread wide, held at chest level for exactly 3 seconds. The silent distress signal, the viral help gesture that Ryder had scrolled past 100 times on sleepless nights. He'd never thought he'd see it in real life. The girl's eyes met his, wide and pleading, before the man yanked her arm down and pulled her toward the checkout. Every muscle in Ryder's body tensed. His tattooed arms, covered in skulls and flames from his days running with the Scorpion crew, flexed as his hands balled into fists. He'd come to Harbor Mart in Ridgewater for supplies before a long ride up the coast. Just water and beef jerky. No drama, no trouble. But that signal changed everything. His mind raced through possibilities, each one more dangerous than the last. What if he was wrong? What if this was just an overprotective father and a scared kid? But her trembling hand, the way she stumbled when he jerked her forward, the complete absence of affection in his grip, it all screamed that something was terribly wrong. Ryder dropped his basket and followed them, pretending to browse the aisles. His leather jacket creaked with each movement, his boots heavy against the linoleum floor. Other shoppers gave him wide berth, like they always did, mothers pulling their children closer, people averting their eyes from the intimidating biker with the rough reputation. If only they knew that right now he might be the only thing standing between that little girl and disaster. The cobra-tattooed man stopped at the self-checkout, keeping the girl pressed tightly against his side. His eyes darted around the store constantly, the movements of someone who expected trouble, who was ready to run. His free hand fumbled with his wallet, and Ryder saw his window closing. He had to act now. Ryder's heart slammed against his ribs as he walked up behind them. Every instinct from his old life screamed warnings, but for once, those instincts were pushing him towards something good instead of away from it. He tapped the man's shoulder firmly. The guy spun around, aggression flashing in his eyes before he masked it with confusion. Up close, the cobra tattoo looked crude, prison-quality ink that told its own story. "Hey man, you dropped this back there," Ryder said casually, holding up a random receipt from his pocket. The man's eyes flicked down instinctively, just for a heartbeat. That heartbeat was all Ryder needed. He dropped to one knee beside the girl, his voice low and urgent. "You're safe now. I've got you." With his right hand, he snapped a photo of the man's face, capturing the cobra tattoo clearly. With his left, he pressed the side button on his phone 5 times rapidly, triggering the emergency SOS that would alert police to his exact location. The man's confusion turned to realization, then pure panic. "What the hell are you doing?" he snarled, backing away. Ryder rose to his full height, positioning his body between the man and the girl like a wall. "Taking care of business. Police are already on their way." It was partially a bluff, but the sirens in the distance suggested his emergency alert had worked. The cobra-tattooed man's face went white. He looked at the girl, at Ryder's imposing frame, at the other shoppers now watching the confrontation with phones raised. Then he bolted, crashing through the automatic doors and sprinting across the parking lot until he disappeared between buildings. Ryder didn't chase him. His only job was keeping this little girl safe. He knelt down again, his voice gentler now, the voice he'd used with a scared animal. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lily," she whispered, her whole body shaking like a leaf. "Lily Hart." "Okay, Lily. The police are coming. You're gonna be okay, I promise." She nodded, and then did something that nearly broke him. She grabbed his hand, her tiny fingers wrapping around his scarred, tattooed knuckles like he was the safest thing in the world. This hand that had thrown so many punches, made so many mistakes, now held by a child who saw him as a protector. The store filled with flashing blue lights within minutes. Officers rushed in, weapons drawn but quickly holstered them when they assessed the scene. Ryder explained everything, showed them the photo, gave his statement while keeping one hand on Lily's shoulder so she'd know she wasn't alone. One of the officers, a woman with kind eyes, knelt beside Lily and spoke in soothing tones, asking gentle questions. Then came the question that confirmed Ryder's worst fears and greatest relief. "Lily, sweetheart, was that man your father?" Lily shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No, he took me from Northwood Park 2 days ago. He said if I screamed, he'd hurt Mommy." The officer's jaw tightened. She looked up at Ryder with something like awe. "You just saved her life. We've been searching for her since Wednesday." The words hit him like a physical blow. All those years of being the bad guy, of living down to everyone's expectations, of believing he was nothing but the mistakes he'd made. And here, in a random grocery store on an ordinary day, he'd finally done something that mattered. Emily Hart arrived within 20 minutes, bursting through the doors with mascara-streaked cheeks and wild, desperate eyes. When she saw Lily, she collapsed to her knees, pulling her daughter into her arms with a wail that echoed through the entire store. "My baby! Oh God, my baby!" Lily clung to her mother, finally breaking down completely, sobbing with the kind of relief that only comes after unimaginable fear. Emily looked up at Ryder through her tears, still clutching Lily like she might disappear. "You saved her. You saved my daughter." Ryder's throat felt tight, emotions he'd buried for years threatening to surface. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Emily said firmly, her voice breaking. "Most people wouldn't have noticed. Most people wouldn't have known what that signal meant. Most people wouldn't have risked themselves." Before they left for the hospital, Lily reached into her small backpack with trembling hands. She pulled out a tiny silver charm, an angel with delicate wings spread wide, and pressed it into Ryder's rough, tattooed palm. "You're my road angel," she whispered. The charm felt impossibly light in his hand, but the weight of what it represented nearly crushed him. This little girl who'd been through hell saw him as something good, as someone who protected instead of destroyed, as an angel. News of the rescue spread through Ridgewater like wildfire. By morning, reporters camped outside his apartment. Neighbors who'd crossed the street to avoid him suddenly wanted to shake his hand. The local news called him a hero, showed his photo, told his story. People cheered when he walked down Main Street, but Ryder didn't want the attention. He gave one brief statement to the press, mostly to encourage others to learn the silent distress signal, then retreated. A week later, with his bike packed and ready to leave, Ryder prepared to leave town. He'd already stayed longer than planned. As he swung his leg over his motorcycle, he carefully hung the angel charm from his rearview mirror. It caught the morning light, casting tiny rainbows across the chrome. He started the engine, feeling the familiar rumble. But something was different this time. The weight on his chest had lifted. The shame that followed him like a shadow felt lighter. He'd spent years running from his past, convinced he was beyond saving. But maybe redemption wasn't about erasing what you'd done. Maybe it was about choosing, in one critical moment, to be better. As he rode out of Ridgewater, the angel charm swaying gently in the wind, Ryder Cole finally understood. He wasn't defined by his worst days. He was defined by what he did when it mattered